Hello and welcome to What's My Tagline? I'm your host, Carol Flagg. Thanks for tuning in. On this show, we put our microphone in front of a variety of industry experts to understand the factors influencing messaging, branding, and reputation in healthcare. You can follow the conversation on Twitter at hashtag What's My Tagline and follow me at Carol Flagg. My guest today is Matt Langan, founder of L&R Communications, which is an independent PR, marketing, and communications consulting firm. I'll be chatting with Matt about the need for creativity to break through the clutter, way PR teams need to embrace the PESO model, and how to develop flattery campaigns. Matt, thank you for joining me today.
Sure. Thanks, Carol. Great to be here.
Oh, great. So, Matt, my first question of all my guests is if you had to describe yourself as a tagline, what would it be?
I love that question, Carol. And it really gets the wheels turning in terms of prep and really caused me to think about how to position ourselves. And I came up with this tagline, and it's tenacious creativity.
Oh,
And yeah, so it's a mixture of being tenacious and creative all in one. Because as you know, it's not just about creative content, because we certainly need to be creative in our content marketing and PR approaches, but we also have to be creative in embracing new ways of helping clients expand brand awareness, generate new leads. And the industry overall, PR and digital marketing, is moving so fast. So we have to be creative on what we recommend to clients. And then tenacity has always been the name of the game in PR for as long as PR has been around. So we always have to be pushing, always seeking new opportunities. So yeah, we came up with tenacious creativity.
I love that. Well, PR is certainly one of those things where, they talk about these rare sort of lightning in the bottle kind of events that can happen in the PR world, but most of it is just the daily hard work and grind to keep the message out for the companies that you work with on a daily basis.
It's so true, Carol, because the world moves so fast these days, and consumers in general are so used to just consuming content at a rapid pace. So let's say you have a good month with a lot of great content, a lot of great announcements or press coverage. It can all be forgotten 4 weeks later. So the machine always needs to be moving forward.
Yeah, well, the lifespan of a single tweet, I mean, no matter who it's coming from, is still pretty darn short.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
So
exactly.
tell us about your background, how you got into PR, and how you landed opening up a PR firm in healthcare.
Sure, that sounds great. Yeah, so basically, I started out my PR career coming out of the Newhouse School at Syracuse University and moved to New York City, as many young graduates
Wow.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and found my way through a number of PR firms that focused on technology. And this was right as the dot-com era was starting to take off. So I certainly cut my teeth and paid my dues at a number of PR firms during that era. And it was a lot of fun. It was pretty crazy, pretty fast moving. It was fantastic. And from there, around 2001, we moved down to the Washington, D.C. area and also worked for a number of smaller PR firms there, but moved more into kind of the government technology, government
Hmm.
IT, healthcare IT. Had a lot of clients that worked or were selling solutions to the VA. So we kind of got into the healthcare scene that way, more from the government side. And we launched L&R Communications with my partner, Anna Rahona, in 2008. Actually, this summer will be our 10th anniversary. So we're pretty,
Wow.
yeah, pretty excited about that. Time flies super fast. It's been, a lot of fun. And, as we progressed, along the lines with healthcare IT, coming from kind of the government side, we worked with customers like VMware. We helped them with a lot of their healthcare messaging, but also overall cloud and virtualization messaging for the federal sector. Right now, we also work with DSS. You might be familiar with
Hmm.
them. They are a pretty big player providing
Yeah.
solutions for the VA. And then, of course, our good friends at Rosetta Health.
Yes, I
They're
do.
another one of our, yeah, love those people. They are just great, and they get creative tenacity. That's something that they certainly understand with their company, and also with a lot of the PR stuff that we do with them. So that's kind of the short and skinny on our background. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And healthcare IT is never a boring space, as you know.
Yeah, so funny. We just passed our 9-year anniversary, and you're going on 10, and it's gone by very fast, but in some ways it feels like dog years. Like, oh my gosh, it's just
It really does.
really feels like a lifetime.
It does. And one of the amazing things that I think about when looking back on the 10 years is just the growth and evolution and lessons learned and, early on mistakes that were done. It's just, you just evolve and learn and keep innovating and keep growing. But we're certainly different people in a different organization than we were 10 years ago. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, haven't we all learned? So let's take this tagline, tenacious creativity, which I think really dovetails to the very first topic we're going to be mulling on or mulling around, which is the need for creativity, assuming tenacious creativity, to break through the clutter and the noise. Because certainly, no matter what vertical you're in, we occupy the health IT niche in healthcare. So we're this like bubble of a spot. But it doesn't matter how big your vertical or the niche that you occupy, there is inherently a lot of clutter and a lot of noise out there. And you alluded to that in the digital world that we all operate in. So let's just jump right into that. Creativity to break through the clutter and the noise. First of all, what do you mean by that?
Sure, sure. Well, just real quick to piggyback off of what you said about the crowded and cluttered space. I know we spent some time together at HIMSS
We did.
not too long ago, and there was just so many exhibitors. And if you look at all of their material and all their booth panels, a lot of people are saying pretty much the exact same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the key to, I believe, and clients like Rosetta Health are a prime example of this, is that you really have to have the courage to be creative, to break out. But the good news is that it's not necessarily that hard, because if everybody else is saying pretty much the same thing, all you need to do is sprinkle a little magic creative dust on your content efforts, and it will help stand out. Like, for example, Buff Kolchagoff, the CEO of Rosetta
I
Health.
do know Bob.
He's the master at creativity, and we often have, every month or every other month, just a sit down meeting where we just whiteboard and brainstorm ideas. And then from there, we move forward. And it's from everything from, spring cleaning time and health data exchange to the 12 days of Christmas guest article that he did for you. He
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really likes to push the boundaries when it comes to creativity. And a lot of those posts or guest articles or podcasts that we did with Buff certainly stood out much more than the traditional typical health IT white papers and the usual messaging that you see out there. So I think that is one of the key foundations there, is that it takes creativity, but it doesn't take that much. And I have a couple of examples that we've done for clients that I thought were pretty cool. Is it all right if I share some with
Yeah,
you?
please do. Please do.
Oh,
That was gonna be my next question if you didn't.
okay. Great, great. So when we worked with VMware, it's for their federal, state, and local, and also for the healthcare side, for them, we did a branded separate news site for them, and where we serve as the editors, and we created a lot of original content about the viability of cloud computing and virtualization for all of those verticals. And what we proposed to the client was, well, how about we do like a Friday fun post that is a little more creative? And we came up collectively with the client with the Thursday is the New Friday blog series. So every Thursday, we did a fun post that actually featured a music video that we embedded from YouTube into each post, but tied back into cloud computing. So an example of one that we did, and I'm a huge music nerd, so this was like the most fun, content engagement I've ever had. And basically, we did one post about kind of the history of cloud computing and virtualization, how it all began and how it's evolved to today. And then we rounded out the post by embedding the video of the song When It Began by The Replacements. So, yeah, we're not playing the top 40 hits here. We're playing like the classic alternative indie artistic
You
music
gotta,
too.
you gotta dig deep.
We always dug deep. It was a lot of fun. The client loved it, and we always got great feedback and great response and great traffic to those posts. So the key is getting a client that gets it, that's willing to take the risks and willing to be a little bold and a little bit different, because you just need that little twist to stand out in the clutter.
It's interesting that you talk about that word risk, and certainly in healthcare and even in health IT, taking sort of creative risks in your messaging and your branding doesn't come, I don't think, naturally to the industry.
Correct. I would agree. And we often see that with our clients in the government technology space.
Sure, sure.
There's so many people saying the same kind of cloud computing, big data, whatever it may be, the same messages, about how they enable mission success for defense agencies. Like, you could copy and paste that message and put it anywhere. And it's very similar in the health IT space. Everybody's pretty much saying the same thing. But it does take risk to be creative. But what I like to counsel clients is, you're not going out there and putting out a message that would alienate, say, the VA or large hospital systems that they're selling to. You're just being a little bit different. You're just kind of showing your true colors and being yourself.
And I think that's important too. In a way, again, just my opinion. I mean, I wouldn't say that we're an incredibly creative media company, but we try to separate ourselves, obviously, from our competitors, and we try to do some interesting things and some unique blog posts. And you mentioned our 12 Days of Christmas on High Tech Answers, which is an annual event that we've been doing for 8 years. And it is difficult sometimes to take something and go, well, if I put this out in the marketplace, I am going to get eyeballs on it. People are going to perhaps, judge what this means. Do you know what I mean? And there is that risk involved. But at the same time, I totally agree with you. Whether you're going to the trade shows or you're going to a lot of the vendors' websites, it is the same 20 or 30 or 40 slogans. I remember, and it started in the meaningful use days. Remember when all these vendors were going to get you your meaningful use incentives, and now it's really tied to value-based care and whatnot. And a lot of the things that I see companies doing that are, I guess, tried and true, like you said, white papers, ebooks, webinars, whatnot, they do seem, in some cases, to all begin to kind of look alike and sound alike.
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, what's going on out there, for sure.
Yeah. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to What's My Tagline, and my guest today is Matt Langan, the founder of L&R Communications. So let's switch gears here a little bit. And you, in our sort of back and forth when we were talking about having you on the show, talked about why PR teams need to embrace the PESO model, PESO model. I had actually never heard that term, that acronym before. So I guess first, explain what the acronym is and the need for PR companies and teams to embrace it.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, happy to talk about this. So, yeah, this PESO model, the PESO, is very much the new frontier in PR and digital marketing. There's a huge convergence between the two these days, as you know. So the P stands for paid, E, earned, S, shared, O, owned. So that's kind of the full circle spectrum of content marketing. So the paid content is what we all know. There's so many paid and sponsored opportunities now. Most trade magazines have the sponsored content or gated white papers, whatever it may be, and certainly viable. It involves an investment, but most publications that you do sponsored content through gate the content, you get the leads, you get to be able to hand something off to the sales team or our marketing contacts internally can. So it's a great thing. And then earned is really earned media, which is traditional PR. And once social media really started to take off about 7-8 years ago, there was all this concern. Well, what's going to happen to traditional PR? Is that going to go away? And I know I have friends of mine who own small boutique PR firms that moved completely into content and social media and stay away from traditional PR.
Hmm.
And I found that it's still very viable. As you know, you get pitched all the time.
All
You
the
get
time.
stuff from me
Yeah.
quite often too. And a lot of times it pays off because publications like yourself and other industry publications in any vertical, if you provide them thought leadership guest articles that are non-promotional, that really tackle some interesting issues, they'll run your content. So traditional PR still works. We still write press releases and put them out over PR web, still see pickup. So yeah, that's the E for earned, and that's really for earned media. The S is for shared, which is really comes down to social media sharing and distribution. As we all know, social media now in this day and age often requires, boosting of content or developing ad campaigns on Facebook and Twitter. But organically sharing content still works, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, whether it's Facebook. It's still a huge driver for awareness. And then owned, the O, that is all the content that's owned by the company, whether it's their own corporate blog, whether they do their own branded blog, under a separate URL, white papers that they gate on their site, their own podcasts, their own videos. That's kind of in the vein of most companies now acting as their own publishers. So that right there in a nutshell is the PESO model.
And so when you talk to your clients or you're talking to prospective clients, uh, are you putting any emphasis more on one part of the acronym than the other? Or is it all equal? Does it depend on the client? Meaning is earned media, which is a very common term in PR, and you're right, we deal with pitches from PR agencies every single day. We'll get, can't even tell you how many pitches we get. But is earned media, I guess, a little bit more important than the others, or what's the balance, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think many companies aim to have the full balance, and I think that's ideal, but I tend to be a little more biased, and I'm definitely into the earned media side of things. Like, for example, a guest article that we provide from Buff from Rosetta Health that runs in your publication certainly in my mind lends more credibility than a sponsored piece on another publication. People know that a piece of content is sponsored and they know it's going to be really salesy. And I think in this day and age, most people don't want to be sold to, or they can see through what the messaging and realize they're being sold to. So I really love the earned media side of it. And I also love the owned side of it, the O, because that way you can control the content, you can control the message, you can integrate solutions like HubSpot into the back end to really track who is seeing the content. It makes it much easier for us as the outsourced PR firm to provide comprehensive reports based on own content from the companies that visited, the leads that visited each piece of content, what was the most popular piece of content, overall traffic numbers. So those two I tend to be biased towards. But also too, I grew up, as I mentioned, in the dot-com era, and that was a time when there's a lot of VC money floating around. Companies would come in real quick, hire us, and in many ways expect miracles, which is
Sure.
certainly challenging. Why aren't I on the cover of the Wall Street Journal? Kind of
That is that is the lightning in the bottle expectation, as I call it. Right, right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's a hugely stressful expectation. But now, thanks to the own content that is all trackable and you can provide all the metrics, it really shows the value and justifies the investment into a PR firm like ourselves. And then earned media always has that third party credibility. You, Carol, are the gatekeeper. If you run a piece of content we provide to you, that is your stamp of approval that I think resonates more in the marketplace too.
Yeah. It's interesting that you're talking about the owned content part of this. Obviously, certainly since the .com, but certainly since really content marketing, became the primary driver, I think, for a lot of companies in their marketing efforts. These companies who write blog posts and white papers and do educational webinars, obviously that owned content that's educational. The other trick to that, of course, is getting that information out as well versus it just being sort of siloed on the company's site, right?
Yeah, exactly,
And
exactly.
is that primarily done through social media, meaning you're strategizing with a particular company, like, look, we're going to be doing this webinar. We have this white paper. We're going to share this on. You recommend Twitter. You recommend LinkedIn. You recommend Facebook. As much as you can push the message out. And I know that seems really obvious. At the same time, I talk to a lot of companies, and I'm always kind of surprised when I talk to a company that is maybe trying to get virtual seats filled in a webinar or more attention to an educational ebook. And when I ask them where else I can find it, their only real answer is that it's on their website.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. There is still a gap there, I believe,
Yeah, there is a gap.
when it comes to that. And that's kind of a two prongs, if you will, in terms of it, because you want to create really compelling content that you own, but you do have to get eyeballs on it. And there's always that pressure. So a lot of times what we'll do with the owned content is we will build out an entire either LinkedIn, Facebook, or even Twitter like ad campaign that's
Mm-hmm.
or even Google AdWords campaign that's highly targeted to help drive the content out there further. Because I think it was 2012, 2013, Facebook changed their algorithm. You could have a Facebook page for any company and you'd put out a piece of content. Anybody that likes your company is going to see it. Now they don't. Now
Yeah,
you have to boost it,
yeah,
and same with LinkedIn. So we always recommend doing that. So that's kind of almost the P and the O together, because you
right.
are recommending doing some sort of paid promotion. And thankfully, you don't need to, client doesn't need to throw down 5-10 grand a month on the paid side of social media. Boosting's not too expensive. Creating simple ads to run on Facebook or whatever it may be is not that costly, and it doesn't the cost per clicks aren't that high. Whereas LinkedIn tends to be a little bit higher, of course. I think it's like $4 or $5 of a cost per click for some of their sponsored and promoted stuff. Yeah, I think it needs to go hand in hand. And also, too, we recommend for any sort of content program, develop a separate landing page for it too, because
Oh,
that's great.
that's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you can you can
Mm-hmm.
measure it that way, you can track it that way. If it's branded well with a nice URL that kind of is in line with your brand, it's a great tool. And now, as we all know, with digital marketing, it does not cost too much to design and put those types of things up.
Actually, it's never been less expensive to do that kind of stuff.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
really is.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So the last thing we wanted to sort of touch upon is, excuse me, how to develop flattery, and I'm putting those in air quotes because you can hear me but not see me. Campaigns where content that is created shines a light, as you say, on prospects to help foster sales. So flattery. First of all, the air quotes. Explain that if you can. What you mean by a flattery campaign, and this idea of how this can drive prospects into the sales funnel.
Sure thing. Happy to answer that question. This is one of my favorite questions when
Oh,
it
I'm
comes.
glad we did it last.
Of course, you saved the best for last.
I did.
So yeah, with flattery campaigns, we came up with this idea maybe 7-8 years ago, and especially when you have your own content, this is an ideal thing to do if you have your own separate branded website that is a news site that runs like an editorial site, so it's like a blog on steroids. And what you do is you figure out your top 5, 10 targets, whatever they may be, and then you go out and write stories about them. You pull their press releases, reach out for podcasts and Q&As, whatever it may be, to shine a light on them. And of course, these branded news sites, it's fully transparent. It'll say, sponsored by VMware or sponsored by Rosetta Health. So it's not some sort of shady fake news organization or anything like that. And what it does, it basically allows the prospect to see their name in lights. And I'll give you a little example. This one's more on the government side of things. So there's a client of ours that we run a site called GovTransformer. And this company, the client's a small reseller, and they sell everything from cloud computing. In fact, they do target VA and other agencies in the health side of the federal arena. And each week we write a blog post, a feature about the latest either government program or government executive that is driving forth innovation. And this government executive or government program is somebody that my client company is trying to influence in their sales pipeline.
Oh.
And it's actually worked. They've gotten some great contracts through it. And also, we did a story 2 years ago about IARPA, one of the defense and intelligence agencies, and put it out, promoted it via social. Made sure we tagged IARPA so that IARPA PR people see it. Potentially share it with leadership within the agency as a PR hit. And we got a call from the public affairs officer saying, "Hey, do we have to pay for the rights to print out this article because we want to frame it?"
Reprint it.
Yeah, to put it in the lobby of IARPA. And we almost fell out of our chairs. It was like the most amazing thing ever. So there's my client's logo on an article inside the headquarters of IARPA in their lobby. So
Right.
yeah, I just think overall that most companies, organizations do like to see their name in lights.
Yes,
And
they do.
yeah, and everybody's human, and everybody wants to, is proud to see their name, in lights, as I mentioned, and we do it in a way that it's not obsequious. You're not, being patronizing. You're basing the content on news, initiatives, awards they may have received. So it's not so over the top that it turns off the prospect.
Yeah, and in the world of social media, of course, that that shining a light is really easy to do with an at mention, whether it's on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, any of those, yeah, and more. I mean, those are the three obvious ones. But it is so easy to let a company or a thought leader know that you've written something about them just by tagging them.
Exactly, and that's often all it really takes.
Right.
And a lot of times they'll retweet your stuff as well. So here's the
Oh yeah.
prospect, so excited that they retweet it. And then the ultimate goal is to report back to the sales team and say, okay, we put out these 3 flattery posts, XYZ prospect retweeted it. Perhaps it's good for you, salesperson, to reach out to the prospect and say, hey, you might have seen, the article that was featured in XYZ branded publication. Thought you might like to, discuss this further and maybe finally have that meeting where I present our capabilities.
Right. Well, Matt, believe it or not, we are just about out of time. I want to thank you for a great conversation.
Thank you, Carol. This is wonderful. It's been a lot of fun.
We have to have you back. This has been really great. You can learn more about Matt by visiting lnrcommunicationcom.com, and of course on the company their Twitter handle, which is at L&R.com,
Yeah,
COMM. Right.
and I'm on LinkedIn, of course. Always on
And
LinkedIn too.
always on LinkedIn. Always, always, always. You can share your thoughts or comments on Twitter at hashtag What's My Tagline or visit the program page on healthcarenowradio.com. Have a topic related to our show you want to hear about, or are you an expert who'd like to be on the show? Reach out to me on Twitter at Carol Flagg or email me at carol@healthcarenowradio.com. Until next time, I'm Carol Flagg, and I want to know, what's your tagline?